United Kingdom demographics. A census is taken simultaneously in all parts of the UK every 10 years. In the 2011 census, the total population of the United Kingdom was 63,181,775. It is the third largest in the European Union, the fifth largest in the Commonwealth and the 22nd largest in the world. In mid-2014 and mid-2015 net long-term international migration contributed more to population growth. In mid-2012 and mid-2013 natural change contributed the most to population growth. Between 2001 and 2011 the population increased by an average annual rate of approximately 0.7%. This compares to 0.3% per year in the period 1991 to 2001 and 0.2% in the decade 1981 to 1991. The 2011 census also confirmed that the proportion of the population aged 0 to 14 has nearly halved, 31% in 1911 compared to 18 in 2011, and the proportion of older people aged 65 and over has more than tripled, from 5 to 16%. England's population in 2011 was 53 million. It is one of the most densely populated countries in the world, with 420 people resident per square kilometre in mid-2015. With a particular concentration in London and the southeast. The 2011 census put Scotland's population at 5.3 million, Wales at 3.06 million and Northern Ireland at 1.81 million. In 2012 the average total fertility rate, TFR, across the UK was 1.92 children per woman. While a rising birth rate is contributing to current population growth, it remains considerably below the baby boom peak of 2.95 children per woman in 1964. Below the replacement rate of 2.1, but higher than the 2001 record low of 1.63. In 2011, 47.3% of births in the UK were to unmarried women. The Office for National Statistics published a bulletin in 2015 showing that, out of the UK population aged 16 and over, 1.7% identify as lesbian, gay, or bisexual, 2.0% of males and 1.5% of females. 4.5% of respondents responded with other, I don't know, or did not respond. Ethnic groups. Historically, indigenous British people were thought to be descended from the various ethnic groups that settled there before the 12th century, the Celts, Romans, Anglo-Saxons, Norse and the Normans. Welsh people could be the oldest ethnic group in the UK. A 2006 genetic study shows that more than 50% of England's gene pool contains Germanic Y chromosomes. Another 2005 genetic analysis indicates that about 75% of the traceable ancestors of the modern British population had arrived in the British Isles by about 6,200 years ago, at the start of the British Neolithic or Stone Age, and that the British broadly share a common ancestry with the Basque people. The UK has a history of small-scale non-white immigration, with Liverpool having the oldest black population in the country dating back to at least the 1730s during the period of the African slave trade. During this period it is estimated the Afro-Caribbean population of Great Britain was 10,000 to 15,000, which later declined due to the abolition of slavery. The UK also has the oldest Chinese community in Europe, dating to the arrival of Chinese seamen in the 19th century. In 1950 there were probably fewer than 20,000 non-white residents in Britain, almost all born overseas. In 1951 there were an estimated 94,500 people living in Britain who had been born in South Asia, China, Africa and the Caribbean, just under 0.2% of the UK population. By 1961 this number had more than quadrupled to 384,000. Just over 0.7% of the United Kingdom population. Since 1948 substantial immigration from Africa, the Caribbean and South Asia has been a legacy of ties forged by the British Empire. Migration from new EU member states in Central and Eastern Europe since 2004 has resulted in growth in these population groups, although some of this migration has been temporary. Since the 1990s, there has been substantial diversification of the immigrant population, with migrants to the UK coming from a much wider range of countries than previous waves, which tended to involve larger numbers of migrants coming from a relatively small number of countries. Academics have argued that the ethnicity categories employed in British national statistics, which were first introduced in the 1991 census, involve confusion between the concepts of ethnicity and race. In 2011, 87.2% of the UK population identified themselves as white, meaning 12.8% of the UK population identify themselves as one of number of ethnic minority groups. In the 2001 census, this figure was 7.9% of the UK population. Because of differences in the wording of the census forms used in England and Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland, data on the other white group is not available for the UK as a whole. But in England and Wales this was the fastest growing group between the 2001 and 2011 censuses, increasing by 1.1 million, 1.8 percentage points. Amongst groups for which comparable data is available for all parts of the UK level, the other Asian category increased from 0.4 to 1.4% of the population between 2001 and 2011. While the mixed category rose from 1.2% to 2%. Ethnic diversity varies significantly across the UK. 30.4% of London's population and 37.4% of Leicester's was estimated to be non-white in 2005, whereas less than 5% of the populations of North East England, Wales and the South West were from ethnic minorities, according to the 2001 census. In 2016, 31.4% of primary and 27.9% of secondary pupils at state schools in England were members of an ethnic minority. The 1991 census was the first UK census to have a question on ethnic group. In the 1991 UK census, 94.1% of people reported themselves as being white British, white Irish or white other, with 5.9% of people reporting themselves as coming from other minority groups. Languages. The UK's de facto official language is English. It is estimated that 95% of the UK's population are monolingual English speakers. 5.5% of the population are estimated to speak languages brought to the UK as a result of relatively recent immigration. South Asian languages, including Punjabi, Hindi, Bengali, and Gujarati, are the largest grouping and are spoken by 2.7% of the UK population. According to the 2011 census, Polish has become the second largest language spoken in England and has 546,000 speakers. 4 Celtic languages are spoken in the UK: Welsh, Irish, Scottish Gaelic, and Cornish. All are recognized as regional or minority languages by the European Union, under the European Charter for Regional or Minority Languages and the Framework Convention for the Protection of National Minorities. As it is an EU member state, this therefore obliges the UK government to provide them specific measures of protection and promotion. In the 2001 census, over a fifth, 21%, of the population of Wales said they could speak Welsh, an increase from the 1991 census, 18%. In addition, it is estimated that about 200,000 Welsh speakers live in England. In the same census in Northern Ireland, 167,487 people, 10.4%, stated that they had some knowledge of Irish. See Irish language in Northern Ireland, almost exclusively in the nationalist, mainly Catholic, population. Over 92,000 people in Scotland, just under 2% of the population, had some Gaelic language ability, including 72% of those living in the Outer Hebrides. The number of school children being taught through Welsh, Scottish Gaelic and Irish is increasing. Among immigrant-descended populations, some Scottish Gaelic is still spoken in Canada, principally Nova Scotia and Cape Breton Island, and Welsh in Patagonia, Argentina. Scots, a language descended from early Northern Middle English, has limited recognition alongside its regional variant, Ulster Scots in Northern Ireland, without specific commitments to protection and promotion. It is compulsory for pupils to study a second language up to the age of 14 in England. French and German are the 2 most commonly taught second languages in England and Scotland. All pupils in Wales are taught Welsh as a second language up to age 16, or are taught in Welsh. Religion. Forms of Christianity have dominated religious life in what is now the United Kingdom for over 1,400 years. Although a majority of citizens still identify with Christianity in many surveys, regular church attendance has fallen dramatically since the middle of the 20th century, while immigration and demographic change have contributed to the growth of other faiths, most notably Islam. This has led some commentators to variously describe the UK as a multi-faith, secularized, or post-Christian society. In the 2001 census, 71.6% of all respondents indicated that they were Christians, with the next largest faiths being Islam, 2.8%, Hinduism, 1.0%, Sikhism, 0.6%, Judaism, 0.5%, Buddhism, 0.3%, and all other religions, 0.3%. 15% of respondents stated that they had no religion, with a further 7% not stating a religious preference. A Tearfund survey in 2007 showed only 1 in 10 Britons actually attend church weekly. Between the 2001 and 2011 census there was a decrease in the number of people who identified as Christian by 12%, whilst the percentage of those reporting no religious affiliation doubled. This contrasted with growth in the other main religious group categories, with the number of Muslims increasing by the most substantial margin to a total of about 5%. The Muslim population has increased from 1.6 million in 2001 to 2.7 million in 2011, making it the second largest religious group in the United Kingdom. In a 2016 survey conducted by BSA, British Social Attitudes, on religious affiliation, 53% of respondents indicated no religion, while 41% indicated they were Christians, followed by 6% who affiliated with other religions, for example Islam, Hinduism, Judaism, etc. Among Christians, adherents to the Church of England constituted 15%, Roman Catholic Church -9%, other Christians, including Presbyterians, Methodists, other Protestants, as well as Eastern Orthodox -17%. 71% of young people aged 18 to 24 said they had no religion. The Church of England is the established church in England. It retains a representation in the UK Parliament and the British monarch is its supreme governor. In Scotland, the Church of Scotland is recognised as the national church. It is not subject to state control, and the British monarch is an ordinary member, required to swear an oath to maintain and preserve the Protestant religion and Presbyterian church government upon his or her accession. The church in Wales was disestablished in 1920 and, as the Church of Ireland was disestablished in 1870 before the partition of Ireland, there is no established church in Northern Ireland. Although there are no UK-wide data in the 2001 census on adherence to individual Christian denominations, it has been estimated that 62% of Christians are Anglican, 13.5% Catholic, 6% Presbyterian, 3.4% Methodist with small numbers of other Protestant denominations such as Plymouth Brethren, and Orthodox churches. Migration. The United Kingdom has experienced successive waves of migration. The Great Famine in Ireland, then part of the United Kingdom, resulted in perhaps 1 million people migrating to Great Britain. Throughout the 19th century a small population of German immigrants built up, numbering 28,644 in England and Wales in 1861. London held around half of this population, and other small communities existed in Manchester, Bradford and elsewhere. The German immigrant community was the largest group until 1891, when it became second to Russian Jews. England has had small Jewish communities for many centuries, subject to occasional expulsions, but British Jews numbered fewer than 10,000 at the start of the 19th century. After 1881 Russian Jews suffered bitter persecutions, and, out of some 2 million who left Russia by 1914, around 120,000 settled permanently in Britain, overtaking the Germans to be the largest ethnic minority from outside the British Isles. The population had increased to 370,000 by 1938. Unable to return to Poland at the end of the Second World War, over 120,000 Polish veterans remained in the UK permanently. After the Second World War, there was significant immigration from the colonies and newly independent former colonies, many from the Caribbean and Indian subcontinent, partly as a legacy of empire and partly driven by labor shortages. In 1841, 0.25% of the population of England and Wales was born in a foreign country. In 1901, 1.5% of the population was foreign-born. By 1931, this figure had risen to 2.6%, and by 1951 it was 4.4%. In 2014 the net increase was 318,000, immigration was 641,000, up from 526,000 in 2013, while the number of people emigrating, for more than 12 months, was 323,000. One of the more recent trends in migration has been the arrival of workers from the new EU member states in Eastern Europe, known as the A8 countries. Citizens of the European Union, including those of the UK, have the right to live and work in any EU member state. The UK applied temporary restrictions to citizens of Romania and Bulgaria, which joined the EU in January 2007. Research conducted by the Migration Policy Institute for the Equality and Human Rights Commission suggests that, Between May 2004 and September 2009, 1.5 million workers migrated from the new EU member states to the UK, two-thirds of them Polish, but that many subsequently returned home, resulting in a net increase in the number of nationals of the new member states in the UK of some 700,000 over that period. The late 2000s recession in the UK reduced the economic incentive for Poles to migrate to the UK, the migration becoming temporary and circular. In 2009, for the first time since enlargement, more nationals of the 8 Central and Eastern European states that had joined the EU in 2004 left the UK than arrived. In 2011, citizens of the new EU member states made up 13% of the immigrants entering the country. In 2010, there were 7.0 million foreign-born residents in the UK, corresponding to 11.3% of the total population. Of these, 4.76 million, 7.7%, were born outside the EU and 2.24 million, 3.6%, were born in another EU member state. The proportion of foreign-born people in the UK remains slightly below that of many other European countries. Immigration is now contributing to a rising population, with arrivals and UK-born children of migrants accounting for about half of the population increase between 1991 and 2001. Over a quarter, 27.0%, of live births in 2014 were to mothers born outside the UK, according to official statistics released in 2015. Analysis of Office for National Statistics, ONS, data shows that a net total of 2.3 million migrants moved to the UK in the 15 years from 1991 to 2006. The ONS reported that net migration rose from 2009 to 2010 by 21% to 239,000. In 2013, approximately 208,000 foreign nationals were naturalized as British citizens, the highest number since records began in 1962. This figure fell to around 125,800 in 2014. Between 2009 and 2013, the average number of people granted British citizenship per year was 195,800. The main countries of previous nationality of those naturalized in 2014 were India, Pakistan, the Philippines, Nigeria, Bangladesh, Nepal, China, South Africa, Poland, and Somalia. The total number of grants of settlement, which confers permanent residence in the UK without granting British citizenship, was approximately 154,700 in 2013, compared to 241,200 in 2010 and 129,800 in 2012. The British government has introduced a points-based immigration system for immigration from outside the European Economic Area to replace former schemes, including the Scottish Government's Fresh Talent Initiative. In June 2010, the government introduced a temporary limit of 24,000 on immigration from outside the EU, aiming to discourage applications before a permanent cap was imposed in April 2011. Emigration was an important feature of British society in the 19th century. Between 1815 and 1930, around 11.4 million people emigrated from Britain and 7.3 million from Ireland. Estimates show that by the end of the 20th century, some 300 million people of British and Irish descent were permanently settled around the globe. Today, at least 5.5 million UK-born people live abroad, mainly in Australia, Spain, the United States and Canada. Education. Education in the United Kingdom is a devolved matter, with each country having a separate education system. Considering the four systems together, about 38% of the United Kingdom population has a university or college degree, which is the highest percentage in Europe, and among the highest percentages in the world. The United Kingdom trails only the United States in terms of representation on lists of top 100 universities. A government commission's report in 2014 found that privately educated people comprise 7% of the general population of the UK, but much larger percentages of the top professions, the most extreme case quoted being 71% of senior judges. England. Whilst education in England is the responsibility of the Secretary of State for Education, the day-to-day administration and funding of state schools is the responsibility of local authorities. Universally free of charge state education was introduced piecemeal between 1870 and 1944. Education is now mandatory from ages 5 to 16, and in England youngsters must stay in education or training until they are 18. In 2011, the Trends in International Mathematics and Science Study, TIMSS, rated 13-14-year-old pupils in England and Wales 10th in the world for maths and 9th for science. The majority of children are educated in state sector schools, a small proportion of which select on the grounds of academic ability. 2 of the top 10 performing schools in terms of GCSE results in 2006 were state-run grammar schools. In 2010, over half of places at the University of Oxford and the University of Cambridge were taken by students from state schools, while the proportion of children in England attending private schools is around 7%, which rises to 18% of those over 16. England has the 2 oldest universities in English-speaking world, Universities of Oxford and Cambridge, jointly known as Oxbridge, with history of over 8 centuries. Since the establishment of Bedford College, London, Girton College, Cambridge, and Somerville College, Oxford, in the 19th century, women also can obtain a university degree. Scotland. Education in Scotland is the responsibility of the Cabinet Secretary for Education and Lifelong Learning, with day-to-day administration and funding of state schools the responsibility of local authorities. 2 non-departmental public bodies have key roles in Scottish education. The Scottish Qualifications Authority is responsible for the development, accreditation, assessment and certification of qualifications other than degrees which are delivered at secondary schools, post-secondary colleges of further education and other centres. Learning and Teaching Scotland provides advice, resources and staff development to education professionals. Scotland first legislated for compulsory education in 1496. The proportion of children in Scotland attending private schools is just over 4% in 2016, but it has been falling slowly in recent years. Scottish students who attend Scottish universities pay neither tuition fees nor graduate endowment charges, as fees were abolished in 2001 and the graduate endowment scheme was abolished in 2008. Wales. The Welsh Government has responsibility for education in Wales. A significant number of Welsh students are taught either wholly or largely in the Welsh language. Lessons in Welsh are compulsory for all until the age of 16. There are plans to increase the provision of Welsh medium schools as part of the policy of creating a fully bilingual Wales. Northern Ireland. Education in Northern Ireland is the responsibility of the Minister of Education, although responsibility at a local level is administered by the Education Authority, which is further subdivided into 5 geographical areas. The Council for the Curriculum, Examinations and Assessment, CCEA, is the body responsible for advising the government on what should be taught in Northern Ireland schools, monitoring standards and awarding qualifications. Healthcare. Healthcare in the United Kingdom is a devolved matter and each country has its own system of private and publicly funded healthcare, together with alternative, holistic and complementary treatments. Public healthcare is provided to all UK permanent residents and is mostly free at the point of need, being paid for from general taxation. The World Health Organization, in 2000, ranked the provision of healthcare in the United Kingdom as 15th best in Europe and 18th in the world. Since 1979, expenditure on healthcare has been increased significantly to bring it closer to the European Union average. The UK spends around 8.4% of its gross domestic product on healthcare, which is 0.5 percentage points below the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development average and about 1 percentage point below the average of the European Union. Regulatory bodies are organised on a UK-wide basis such as the General Medical Council, the Nursing and Midwifery Council, and non-governmental based, such as the Royal Colleges. However, political and operational responsibility for healthcare lies with 4 national executives. Healthcare in England is the responsibility of the UK government, healthcare in Northern Ireland is the responsibility of the Northern Ireland Executive, healthcare in Scotland is the responsibility of the Scottish Government, and healthcare in Wales is the responsibility of the Welsh Government. Each national health service has different policies and priorities, resulting in contrasts.